I wanted to ask you about
Mhm.
how to shit test a woman. I've never heard that phrase before, being a Brit.
Yeah.
But why do you think so many people are asking for this content on, women and dating? Where's this all come from, do you think?
I think it's come from a lot of areas. I think that, I mean, there's this prevailing notion today that our granddads had to work half as hard for women that were twice as good as what we have available to us today, right? Women today have social media, and even an average looking woman with filters and good makeup and lighting and a push-up bra can put out good photography on an Instagram and get the attention of a lot of people. They can use good photography on dating apps and get the attention of a lot of guys. Um, Women get far, far more matches and attention on dating apps than what men do today. Um, about 80% of the women are struggling to get the attention of the top 20% of guys. And that means the rest of the guys are pretty much invisible. I mean, if they're a 7 or 8 out of 10 or lower, they're going to struggle to get the attention of attractive women that they want to be with in today's world. So there's a lot of, I mean, this is a large puzzle with hundreds of pieces. And it's really difficult to know where to start, but it seems obvious to me at this stage that the reason why people have an appetite for this information is because what they've been given their entire lives hasn't worked. They've been told, just be a nice guy, be a shoulder to cry on. Like, how many guys do you know that try to win the affection and the love of a woman by entering the friend zone? They just try to be their friend. And then when that completely goes sideways, and then she runs off to try to be with Mr. Exciting, and Mr. Reliable sitting there with his hands in his pocket playing pocket pool, wondering why she's with Chad, that night instead of him. So I think men and women in general, not just men, but I think men and women have been let down and lied to as far as what the other sex responds to and gets the results to where they're looking at that are aligned with their goals, if I can put it that way.
Hmm. And what are those wounds in the relationships that you've had that you've been able to turn into this education?
Well, I think divorce is certainly one of them. I talked about it in my book. I have a chapter in my book on why smart men don't marry today. So anybody that hasn't been divorced doesn't know this, but you tend to sort of approach it from the angle of, right, I found somebody I love. She loves me. We've met each other's family. We've traveled. We're going to take some vows together in sickness and health and richer and poorer and blah, 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 and all that sort of stuff. And we'll raise a family and we'll be together forever and ever until kingdom comes, sort of thing. But it doesn't always work out that way. And marriage as a proposal for men, because when you get married today, you essentially invite the state into your home. They become the governors of your relationships. They become the governor of your assets. They become the governor of what happens to you, your access to your own children if you have to untie the knot. So things have changed dramatically, and it's very difficult. It's misunderstood, and you don't understand it until you go through it. And that's when the fog of war is lifted and you see what you deal with. So, I mean, if you took a classroom full of graduating students from high school and let them sit in a divorce court for an afternoon to watch how fathers got treated, I think you'd probably find if you interviewed them afterwards, there'd be a lot of interesting conversations and surprises that they would want to talk to you about. But it's one of those things that there's not a lot of conversations about today.
And so, why don't smart men get married now then?
There's not a lot of benefit to it, at this point in time when it comes to Western marriage. It's high risk and generally low reward for men. It's low risk and high reward for women. Women tend to marry across and up on the socioeconomic scale. They've always done that. That's why women are called hypergamous. So that's not a bug. It's a feature of women. If they didn't marry competent men, if they didn't invite competent men or want to reproduce with competent men, the chances of them surviving or their offspring surviving would be quite low. So women tend to marry men of a higher caliber than themselves. That's why it's common for a $40,000 a year hairdresser to marry Steve, the VP of the sales team at the large Fortune 500 company. So if the knot needs to be untied, she's going to be well looked after. Family law takes care of it. Unfortunately, it's structured in such a way that it actually motivates women to behave quite badly if they have to untie the knot. Because if they go for control, which is custody of the children, then they get more money. So not only do they get the benefit of decision-making, unilateral decision-making without the father contributing to that, they also extract wealth and resources from him over a prolonged period of time. And what guys usually find out happens during that period of time is they're alienated from their own children while their wealth is stolen from them and given to the mother. And now we have this problem today where most kids growing up, and when I say most, it's not all, but it's about 43%, is I think the last time I saw the stats on it, but about close to half of households are single parent households, which means that there's one parent doing most of the child rearing. And in that case, it's generally speaking mothers, because they get custody orders about 80% of the time still. And that's only for married couples. There's, of course, mothers that become single mothers, whether by choice or by accident, but they go off on their own and they raise their kids by themselves. So you've got this entire generation now that's being raised with the absence of masculinity in the household. And that's very problematic. So back to the original question of why aren't smart men getting married? It's not that they're not having children. It's not that they're not, passing on their name and their DNA. They're still finding ways to do that. It's just they're not doing it under the guise of marriage anymore. They're using prenuptial agreements. They're using contractual arrangements. They're using relocation, geolocation to move to places where laws aren't hostile towards fathers. That's how smart men do it now.
So if there's a man with a woman and the woman's putting some pressure maybe, or wants to get married to the man, I'm looking at someone behind me, but I'm not going to mention his name. Mm-hmm. And maybe this person, wants to still be with the woman, but doesn't want to get married. How does he navigate that situation?
You just have to be firm. You have to be resolute. You have to put your foot down and say, I love you to bits and I want to be with you for a very long time, but I do not want to invite the state into my household. I do not want to let the government decide what happens to our relationship, to our wealth, to our children, and all of those things. And realistically, if she's a good woman, she should be okay with that. She should be absolutely fine with that. The only time that women absolutely lose their mind and get upset over it is if they're not there for the right reasons. If they're there for you because they love you and they want to be with you and they want to be a part of your life, whether or not they have access to your wealth after things don't work out, or whether or not they have access or full rights to the children after things don't work out, shouldn't matter. A good woman would be happy to just leave with what she came with.